Welcome back to Nifty 50 Photographers. Now in today's video we're going to add a touch of magic to your forest photos by creating some atmospheric mist using Adobe Photoshop's neural filters. Now often when you look for tutorials on how to create fog or atmosphere or mist, you'll find what people do is they suggest you render clouds or difference clouds, and I'm not knocking that. I think it works very well. The big difference between this technique and rendering clouds is when you render clouds to create a fog or a mist, it creates a sort of patchy mist which can be very realistic, especially in large landscape shots. But in forest photos you often get a kind of mist created by moisture that's kind of hanging in the atmosphere, or perhaps the forest's high up and you're kind of inside a cloud. And I think this technique is much more realistic for that, where you're kind of looking into the density of the forest and it's going that sort of very light misty colour in the background. So without further ado, how do we do it? Let's crack on. I'm going to show you how I transformed this photo into this photo. Now it was quite a misty day when I took this, but it hasn't really come through on the camera. I was actually quite high up. I think it was a bit like being inside a cloud. It was a very, very fine drizzle. When you look through the trees, it looked to have that misty feel, and I'm disappointed it didn't come through in the photo, so that's what I'm going to try and recreate here. I've done some basic development on this shot and now I've opened it in Photoshop. The first thing we're going to do is duplicate the background layer, and we do that by pressing Command J. I'll put the shortcuts up for Windows users on the screen. Now once we've done that, we need to go to the filters menu and choose neural filters. Now if you've not used these before, you may need to download them. The one I'm going to go to is in the photography section, and that's called depth blur. So we click that button on. We're really only interested in one slider, and that's the blur strength. I'm going to reduce that to 0, and then I'm going to tick this box that says output depth map only, and you need to make sure that it's outputting to a new layer, and click OK. Once you've done that, we need to change the blend mode now to screen. Okay, now you can see that is a bit severe on our image. We've got a bit of the stuff in the foreground that's okay, but the rest of it is washed out. Now that's much more than I need, so I'm going to put on a curves adjustment layer. So come down to this little symbol here and add one for curves, and make sure you tick this little symbol here to link the curves layer to the layer below. Now we can play around with these sliders to adjust the intensity of that mist. So we can bring it in from the blacks, and this will bring in more foreground. If we slide it in from the top, we'll get more intensity in the background. So play around with that a little bit till you get something that you're quite happy with, and then you need to go back and adjust that layer below and adjust the opacity of it. So go back to your depth maps layer and just play with the opacity, and you probably need to bring it down quite a lot. I usually end up somewhere around 20 or 30%. Then I go back to my curves layer and just play with these sliders a little bit more till I get what I want, and I think I've gone too far with that, so I'm going to bring it back a bit until I get something that is roughly what I want. And I'm not going to bore you in this video just fine-tuning that, but just fine-tune that till you're happy. Now if there's some areas that aren't working quite well enough, you can also add a layer mask. So go back down to this layer below. This is your depth map layer. Add a layer mask to that. Now it's now all white, so I need to paint out the areas that I want the mist to disappear from. So I choose a brush, make sure my color is set to black. I know this stump here was right in the foreground, so I'm going to paint over that, and then I probably want to adjust the edge of that, let the mist creep in a bit. So let's take the opacity down again, maybe the flow down as well, and do this a bit more subtly around this edge to bring that in. And I might want to bring in this big tree trunk in the foreground a little bit as well, but you can play with that, and that's just a question of playing with the mask, doing the little bits of fine-tuning till you get what you want. Now this is what I've finished up with, and I'm really quite happy with the image. It's brought back that atmosphere that I wanted in the photo, and you can take it back into Lightroom and maybe do a little bit more development if you want. Now if you're really interested in taking photos in the forest, do have a video I made last year, I think in the autumn, and I'll link to that up here. And if you have enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Remember to hit that notification bell so you get notified when I release some new content. In the meantime, your creativity is the only limit to what beautiful photos you can produce. So go out there with your camera, have some fun, take some great shots, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.